welcome everybody to our Monday night call. This is Jeff Tuttle. I'm excited to be here with everyone. And just a quick review of last week. I'm going to look at my notes here. Last week we did Success Principles 13 and 14, which were take action. You just got to do it, and then just lean into it. And in other words, lean forward, get moving forward, make sure your momentum's moving you forward. Michelle Geit did a great job talking to us about how she's been able to take action in her career and in the things that she's done, and in network marketing also. And I don't know if you remember, just real quick, there was a story of the guy who said, you know, who wants a $100 bill? And he held up a $100 bill, and he just stood there. And finally, somebody came up and grabbed the $100 bill. He said, I was waiting for somebody to come grab it. Somebody to take action and grab the $100 bill. So take action, lean into it. Tonight, I'm excited about our topics because we're going to talk a little bit about, well, we have two topics. We're chapter 15 and chapter 16. The first one is experience your fear. And that's a tough one. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that holds most of us back. And this one is experience your fear, take action anyways. And I was thinking about a little while ago when I was in Hawaii, there's this real high waterfall we hiked up to, and there are people deciding whether to jump off or not, you know, and into the water. And, you know, I thought, what are the fears that are going through those people's mind? Do they think they're going to hit the bottom? You know, they don't know how deep the water is. They think they're going to break their leg. What is the fear that they have? Because they just saw 5 people in front of them jump off the waterfall. But there's some innate fear that keeps people from taking action. And a lot of times it's just our own things that we build up in our mind. And you know what? This one person stood there, and the longer they stood there, the harder it got. And then they stood there and stood there and stood there. And finally, guess what they did? They backed down. They didn't jump. And other people just walk up to the edge, boom, jump off, and they are off in the water. Nobody got hurt. I jumped off. I didn't wait too long. I just said, you know, if these kids can do it, I can try it. So, but, you know, experiencing our fear, that's important. I also thought of an example from years ago of a person who gets a seed, and they have that seed and they're trying to decide what to do with it. And if they're afraid to plant it because a bird might get it or might die or something else might happen, they may be afraid to plant that seed. And if you don't plant the seed, you can't expect anything to grow and to get have fruition unless we're willing to plant that seed. You know, what if it dies? What, and all these things we conjure up in our mind. What if we're rejected? What if? And so we're going to show a quick video here.
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield, and today I want to talk to you about how to conquer the source of all your fears so you can liberate yourself from all of them once and for all. Now, for most of us, fear is the single biggest thing that holds us back from achieving our goals and dreams. It's one of the most common reasons people procrastinate on taking action toward their goals. We fear failure, loss, or rejection. We feel fear of being embarrassed, of being disappointed, of getting hurt, or fear of angering other people. So we play it safe and avoid taking risks or trying new things. Now, fear is natural, but where does it come from? Here's the deal. It comes from us. It comes from you, from our own minds and imagination. And it's important to remember that as humans, we've evolved to the stage where almost all of our fears are now self-created. We scare ourselves by imagining negative things that are going to happen in the future. But just because we imagine these things happening, that doesn't mean they will happen or that they will be as painful as we think. That's why psychologists like to say that fear stands for FEAR, fantasized experiences appearing real. Because fear is all about what we think or imagine might happen, not what will happen. The good news is, since our thoughts and our images are the root source of all of our fears, that means we have the power to overcome them by changing our thoughts or our images. Instead of allowing ourselves to imagine a worst-case scenario and therefore be a victim of our fears, we can take control of our own minds and consciously decide to think positive thoughts and visualize a best-case scenario instead of a catastrophic one. Now, here's a simple exercise to help you gain more control over your fears and show you how unfounded they really are. First, make a list of the things you are afraid to do. These are not things you're afraid of, like spiders or snakes, but instead the things you're afraid to do, such as going to sleep in a room where you've seen a spider, or picking up a snake, or going skydiving, or dancing, or singing in public, or scuba diving. So your list might include things such as leaving my job, going back to school, talking to my partner about our relationship, asking for a raise, investing in the stock market, buying a house, getting married, having children, or starting a business. Once you've completed your list, restate each fear in the following format. I want to blank, and I scare myself by imagining blank. For example, I want to start my own business, and I scare myself by imagining that I will go bankrupt and lose my house. Or, I want to talk to my husband about our relationship, and I scare myself by imagining that if he knew how I really felt and what I really wanted, he would leave me. Or I really want to have children, and I scare myself by imagining that I will feel totally trapped and never have any time to do the things that I want to do. And by completing a statement for all the things that you're afraid to do, you can see how you're the one creating your fears by imagining a negative outcome in the future. Now let's take more control over those fears. I want you to take the last part of that statement, the fearful outcome you imagine, and transform it into something positive. For example, instead of I scare myself by imagining I'll go bankrupt and lose my house, instead say, I empower myself by imagining I will work hard and do whatever it takes to make my business a success. Instead of saying, I scare myself by imagining that my husband will leave me, instead say, I empower myself by imagining he will hear me and commit to working together to cultivate greater love and intimacy in our relationship. Do you see how each of these statements flips the fear on its head and transforms it into a powerful, positive vision? So I encourage you to try this for yourself and transform all of your fears into empowering visions of success. And after you complete this exercise, you'll be able to transform your fear into power. Now, here are some other strategies to help you move past any fears that might pop up faster. First, I encourage you to become more aware of your thoughts. Thoughts produce emotions. So if you want to change how you feel, change your thoughts. Whenever you feel fear, retrace your mental steps and observe what were you thinking about or what were you picturing in your mind? What thoughts led to your feelings of fear? And once you identify them, it will be easier to resolve them or release them and replace them with something more positive. My second strategy to minimize fear is to consciously and intentionally choose more positive thoughts. It's challenging to rid yourself of negative thoughts simply by not thinking them. The law of replacement dictates that you can't replace something with nothing. You have to replace it with something else. Otherwise, you create a mental vacuum that will suck the old thought back in. So when you notice yourself experiencing a negative, fear-producing thought, replace it with a positive thought instead, like I did in the exercise I just showed you. For example, if you want to become a best-selling author, be on the lookout for thoughts like, well, what if the publishers reject my manuscript? Instead, think, publishers are going to love my manuscript. And then visualize a publisher accepting your manuscript and agreeing to publish and market your book. You can even go so far as to visualize a bookstore with huge stacks of your book in the window and people lined up to get you to autograph their book. Now, my third tip is to notice the physical sensations you experience when you think a fearful thought. You may feel fear as a sinking feeling in your stomach or a tightening in your shoulders and your chest or an elevated heart rate. Now notice what you feel and then consciously replace those physical sensations with sensations you'd rather be experiencing. So focus on positive emotions such as peace and joy, and then notice what shows up in your body. Perhaps a rush of warmth in your chest and your stomach, or a smile on your face, or a tingle of delight running up your back. Imagine yourself experiencing those sensations instead, and the fears you were experiencing will start to neutralize. Now, my fourth piece of advice is to use affirmations to create a more positive, success-oriented mindset. As you know, affirmations are powerful statements that describe the reality you want to create, and they are a powerful antidote to fear. And here's how they work. Imagine the reality you would like to create, and then form a positive statement that describes it as already having been achieved. And you can start your affirmation with the words, I am so happy and grateful that. For example, I am so happy and grateful that now I am a New York Times bestselling author. And by stating it as already having been achieved, you create a tension between what you're saying and what your mind knows to be true. And your subconscious doesn't like this tension, and it'll begin to work overtime to resolve it, prompting you to both become more aware of resources and opportunities, and it'll come up with creative ideas that will help you achieve your goal and to take more action. Now, as you practice your daily affirmations, you may find yourself thinking, what if this doesn't work? If that happens, I encourage you to change the question to, what if this does work? Or why will this work? Or how will this work? You could also create an affirmation that says, I am so happy and grateful that all my affirmations are working. And by shifting your thoughts to focus more on action and solutions, you'll find it easier to maintain your forward momentum. Now, my next tip is to charge your visualizations with powerful positive emotions. For example, take the affirmation, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm a New York Times best-selling author. When you take a moment to feel the feeling you'd be feeling when you'd actually achieve that goal, such as happiness, joy, relief, or gratitude, you strengthen the power of that affirmation and that visualization. So you want to pretend like you are an actor and just create the feeling in your emotions and in your body. And just as the emotion of fear can paralyze you, intense positive emotions can motivate you and accelerate your journey toward greater success. Now, my sixth tip is to be realistic about risk. A practical and often overlooked strategy for overcoming fear is to make sure you're not risking more than you can afford to lose. So to grow and achieve greater success, you have to risk something. Just make sure that you can bear the loss if you don't succeed the first time. Now, my advice is to begin by taking on smaller challenges and work your way up to the bigger ones. If you want to start your business, but you need a guaranteed income each month to pay your mortgage and stay out of debt, maybe run your business as a side gig until you have enough clients or sales to quit your job for good. And if you're starting your first job in sales, start by calling on prospects or customers who you think will be the easiest to sell to. And if you're eager to take on new responsibilities at work, start by asking to do parts of a project you're interested in, not the whole project. And if you want to run a marathon, start slowly with a simple Couch to 5K running app. Master the skills you need to learn, move through your fears, and then take on bigger challenges. Now, my final tip is to celebrate your successes. You've overcome countless fears to become the person you are today, whether it was learning to ride a bike, learning to drive a car, first time you kissed someone you liked, taking risks, and opening yourself to new experiences is always a little scary. But when you face your fears and take action anyway, you build up confidence in your abilities. The situation you're facing now and how your fear is manifesting now may be very different than what you experienced in the past. But you already know how to overcome your fears. You spent a lifetime doing it. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain." So I encourage you to follow Emerson's advice and do the thing you fear. It is the best possible way to grow as a person and achieve more success in life. Every successful person I know has been willing to take a leap of faith, even though they were afraid. And because they knew that if they didn't act, the opportunity would pass them by. And one more thing before we go. Remember that you can also use EFT tapping to tap away your fears. I've had students and clients totally disappear fear in less than 5 minutes of tapping. So I encourage you to get a copy of my book, Tapping into Ultimate Success, to learn how to tap away your fear. In summary, recognize fear for what it is, a mental trick your ego uses to protect you from the negative outcomes it imagines might occur if you did what you want to do. But remember, you're the one creating your fear, and you have the power to uncreate it and dissolve it and replace it as well. So use the techniques I have just shared with you to overcome this emotional roadblock so you can turn your dreams into reality and live the life that you truly desire. Remember, nobody achieves greatness by playing it safe. Now here's your homework to complete after watching this video. Think about something you're afraid to do. Now acknowledge that you are the one that's creating that fear by saying, I want to blank, and I scare myself by imagining blank. And then transform the second part of the statement into a more positive outcome by saying, and I empower myself by imagining, then you fill in the positive outcome you want, and then add what action you'll take to make it happen. By saying, and to create that outcome, I will blank. Now repeat that to yourself a few times and see how you feel. And finally, I challenge you to do something today that up until now has scared you.
Thanks. I think that's pretty powerful words. And you know what? If you get a chance to go back into your book and look at that section where it says, I want to blank, and I scare myself by imagining blank. I think that's a pretty good exercise. Mark Twain, here's my quote, Mark Twain said, I have lived a long life and had many troubles, most of which never happened. You know, a lot of times we just imagine things that, you know, we're afraid things are going to happen. But we all have drivers, things that will make us overcome our fear. And so tonight, what I've Dave and I are going to kind of tag team on this one, because Dave's somebody who's built in the field and he's overcome those fears. He's had to go through some of those same fears that many of you have. And I just wanted him to take some time and talk about what he did to overcome his fears, and just share a little bit of his story with you, especially for those that haven't heard his story and that will get to watch this at a later time. So Dave, are you on with us?
You bet, Jeff. Thanks. Absolutely loved this chapter. In fact, I almost feel like for our business model, of all the chapters I've read, this one might be the most important. And it caused me to really reflect, Jeff, when you asked me to talk about this a little bit tonight. It caused me to reflect on that journey, because at the first of my experience in direct selling, I was afraid. I remember making that contact list, and, they talk about the 500-pound phone, and oh my gosh, it was all I could do to pick up the phone and call people. And the interesting thing, so here's what got me over that hump. I'm going to talk about kind of two levels that I got to. The second level was a really good place. The first one, there's a quote on page 158, right in the middle of the page. Canfield says this: "All the successful people I know have been willing to take a chance, a leap of faith, even though they were afraid. Sometimes they were terrified, but they knew if they didn't act, the opportunity would pass them by." And what happened to get me moving at first, despite my fear, Jeff, is that Mary and I's why was bigger than our fear. What we knew that people had been successful in direct selling. We knew that the people who enrolled us had been successful in direct selling. We also knew that if we didn't do it, we would probably lose our house. Just the practicality of, $100,000 of medical debt from Mary's chemo treatments. And so that why was so big that I just took all that fear and just shoved it right back down my throat and made those phone calls, okay? Now, that got me through into taking action, but then there was another step that got me to actually enjoy it. And that's really what I want to share with the people who watch this call tonight. So step one, make sure your why is bigger than your fear. Step number two, I actually, Jeff, this is the first time I've ever read it put, the people who trained me in direct sales called it something a little bit different. They called it letting go of the outcome. And Canfield calls it on page 161, high intention, low attachment. He says, if you want to remain calm and peaceful as you go through life, you have to have high intention and low attachment. You do everything you can to create your desired outcomes, and then you let it go. Sometimes you don't get the intended result by the date that you want. That's life. So I finally got to a real joy spot where I kind of said, okay, you know what, rather than feeling as though, and this is a little hard to explain, I see Moana nodding her head because I think she's probably gotten here as well, is that it's not that you become complacent, but it's also that you're not living and dying on the outcome of every outreach. You're just not having all this stress that says, oh my gosh, what if they say no? No, you just say, you know what? I got something good. It's blessing my life. It could bless their life. I don't know if they're going to want it to or not, but I'm going to put it out there. And you know what? If it's not the right time for them, it's not a big deal because I'll just move on to the next person. And you know what? I'm going to do it in a sincere way. So they're going to know that it's coming from a place of love and concern, and it's not going to damage the relationship. None of those fears that I have are you just kind of settle into this nice place of I'm just going to offer this over and over and over. And you know, it allowed me to settle into a real rhythm, and Mary to settle into a real rhythm where we just got really super real with people. And we would say things like this. We would say, you know what, Jeff, Mary and I have found a nutritional system that is really benefiting our lives. And I don't know what's going on for you with your health right now, but I'd just really love for you to take a look at this and see if it might be helpful to you. If I shoot you over a quick video, will you watch it? Can I call you back tomorrow? You know, just coming from a place of reality, sincerity, you know, putting it out there. So that got us past the point of stuffing down the fear to not having fear. You know, I got to the point where I could talk to anybody, anywhere, because the belief I had in here was, you know what, I have something that's good. I'm going to share it. If they don't want it, it's not a big deal. Interesting thing, want to just share one more thing. The rest of the story is 7 years into working our business, you remember, you know, those original fears? I'm going to ruin my friendships. People are going to hate me because I bring this up. People are going to be rude and mean, and they're going to reject me. Guess what? Not once in 7 years did any of those fears come to reality. They were all false. They were all invented. And so, you know, guys, the bottom line is that there's great things that are happening and that are going to happen with Live International. If you're afraid, find your way to push through it. You know, make it big, get a big why, get comfortable with your motive and what you're doing. So that'd be what I'd share, Jeff. It's a fun and exciting journey, and you do just kind of have to push through it a little bit.
Yeah, you know, thanks for your comments. Those are really great. You know, I look at the friends that I've made and my acquaintances, the people I run around with. Guess what? Those are the people that are drinking green and the people that I met. I didn't know most of the people who I consider very good friends now. And I think the one thing that I really see in the people that have been successful is they are authentic, and they are not coming with a front of, I'm going to make money off of you. But yet they also don't feel like, is that person going to think I'm going to make money off them? No, they're actually out sharing and being authentic. And you know what? If somebody says no, then you say, okay, great. You know, and it's not that you go out and keep pestering and badgering them. You say, okay, maybe later on, call me back if you ever need you know, if you're ever needs, whenever you're sick and need some help. So I think there's some really good point. I appreciate that, because really we get afraid of what are they going to think. But you know what? Everything we do is sharing and selling, whether we tell them about a good movie, we all go through these examples, but you know, and so for me, it's all about being authentic, sharing what you know and sharing what you believe.
Hey, Jeff, I got a question for Moana. Those who know Moana, you know, Moana, have you ever, you don't seem like anything really bothers you. As you think about your history of your 10 years with Liv, were you ever afraid to talk to other people?
You know, I have been in the network marketing, relationship marketing field for over 25 years, and I believe in it. In my beginning 15 years, I wasn't a confident person like I am today. My motives were different, and you know what's been going on for me over the last 10 years with Liv is I love you guys. I mean, when I choose somebody, there's absolutely zero fear, because I'm watching them, I'm around them. Or if it's instant, like I told you about this naturopath, he was in the sauna with me multiple times, and we talked and laughed and got to know him. And I mean, I didn't break out with my greens immediately, but then I introduced it to him because I looked him in the eyes and I said, I like you, Aaron, and you are doing really great things in your world. So for me, like you, Jeff, and John and Dave, I want to work with people, and the people I work with and live are my favorite people on the planet. You know, I like to surround myself. So I've had my fears, and they weren't real. I felt less than, and I didn't have the right motives. And now, obviously, with your guidance and Jeff's, and just this whole shift has been so exciting. I mean, my team, you know, even though things go up and down like the ebb and flow of life, my team is really in this interesting, like, believing finally, like, you know, look, we've got the best products. They've saved me. And there's nothing that anybody can say. I'm not scared of any of it anymore. It's so fun.
Yeah.
You know, that word, Jeff, that Moana used, the word motive, that was key to Mary and I's experience too, is that once we got really right with our motive, that the fear went away. Because, you know, why would anyone get mad at you for just wanting to help them?
Sure.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that goes back, guys, to our, you know, law of attraction and all the principles that have built up to this moment. Is, I mean, I'm 5'2", 120. I'm going to be 117 pounds shortly here. Yeah, 124. I have about 5 more to go. But, you know, the fear is the not knowing self, you know. And when we attract good people, it's because we are coming from love and light and kindness. And I'm just a bragger of Jeff and Live International, because, you know, the link was you, Dave, to come in and put it all together, because I've always believed in Jeff. I believe in the live life well concept. It's so simple and easy. And I have, you know, rotated, and I've shown my team to just feel good. When you feel good, people are going to not feel that you're trying to push them into anything. You know, everyone's selling something right now. Everyone.
Right. You know, I will probably get to this in another class, but the one thing that's really hit me hard lately is there's so many people out there with the gig mentality. You know, people wanting to drive Uber and Lyft so I can get $25 right now, but the average Uber driver lasts 71 days. And so you kind of go like, well, then what happens? They're back to zero. And for me, as we build our Live business, you know, we're truly doing something that can be a legacy and pass on to our future generations and our loved ones. And so for me, that's what gives me the most satisfaction about doing Live with people and working together as teams and working together kind of like a family, you know. So I just have one quote. I just looked down at my paper and I saw the quote at the bottom. We're about ready to wrap up, but anybody can comment after this. But I love this quote. It said, anything worth doing is worth doing badly in the beginning. And, you know,
Yes.
to me, that makes sense. You know, anything worth doing, you know what? How many have heard somebody start out on a violin? You know, it's not a pleasant experience for your ears when you first hear a kid playing the violin, but boy, when you hear him after with lots of practice. So anything worth doing is worth doing badly in the beginning. I liked also the quote from Michelangelo where, you know, it says, what did he say? Where is it? Well, basically, be willing to pay the price. He had to lay on it says, oh, here it is. If people knew how hard I had to work to gain my mastery, it wouldn't seem so wonderful at all. And, you know, generations and generations have enjoyed his art, but it didn't come easy. There was the story of Michael Phelps, Oprah, who said, the biggest secret in life is that there is no secret. Whatever is your goal, you can get there if you're willing to work. And so just, you know, I think those are some important points that I got from this. And then the last one was talent is cheaper than table salt. What separates the talented from the successful is a lot of hard work. You know, there's plenty of talented people out there, but it's the hard work separates us out. So, you know, be willing to pay the price. Next week, we're going to talk about ask, and rejection. So a little bit of what Dave talked about tonight. Anybody has any final thoughts? That's my final thought. I appreciate everybody being on tonight and look forward to next weekend.